if you have to remember.
Recording.
Good show.
So first, I would like to say thank you for your service in World War II.
I've been thanked so many times. The people that need thanking are the ones that gave their life so that I could make it here.
That is true. So is it okay if you could tell me your life before you entered the service?
What was that?
Is it okay if you could tell me about your life before you entered
My,
World War
my
II?
life before I entered the service?
Yes.
Yes. Uh, uh, I was born and raised on a 160-acre farm in Minnesota. And I was born on December 20th, 1922. So I only had 11 days in 1922, my birth year.
Wow.
So I started grade school, first grade, when I was 4 years old. 4.
Wow.
I graduated 8th grade when I was 12 and started high school when I was 12 years old.
That's amazing.
And I graduated from high school at 17 years old. And the 20th of December in 1940, the year I graduated, I turned 18. On February 10th, 1941, I had joined the National Guard when I was 15 years old, going to high school.
That's crazy.
Because I had to work my way for my room and board, so I didn't have any money. And my cousin and I joined the National Guard at 15. We told them we were born in 1919. That's 3 years difference in our age. So when
It is.
people say, my God, you lied about your age, I say, only 3 years.
A veteran that I interviewed. Oh, sorry.
That that 3 years actually saved our life. I had 2 cousins and myself went over to North Ireland right after the Japanese hit Pearl Harbor in 1941. So we came over there in 1942 in March. And all of those people now are gone. They're dead. And the unit I came over there with, their shield says at the very bottom, "To the last man." And I am it. I'm it. And when I saw that shield when I was 15, I said, my God, to the last man, never dreaming that I would be the last man.
Just wow.
You can break in and ask anything you want.
Um, what was your family like?
What is my family like?
Yes.
I was number 7 in a family of 8. I had older brothers, 16, 14, 12, 10, and then 2 older sisters, 8 and 6 years older than me. And then I came along, and 2 years later, my younger brother, Bob, came. And he was a kind of a terror.
He was what?
A kind of a terror.
Its hair?
Like a terrier, you know, troublemaker.
Oh, I
Oh,
see.
always in trouble. And I got the spankings because I wasn't watching him. Now, it was my job to watch him.
Mm.
So,
Mhm.
you have read my book, haven't you?
I started reading it. I haven't finished yet.
Did you get to the place where he fell down on the windmill 45 feet?
No, I haven't. He fell down a window at 45 feet.
Windmill.
Oh, windmill, sorry.
Yes. Yeah,
Was he okay?
the windmill was 50 foot tall, but at the 45-foot level, they had put a plank up there across on the bars of the windmill, so they could put a pulley up there when they pulled the well up to repair it. Well, he got out and walked on that plank. And then I told him to get down off of there, or I was going to tell my mother. My mother was on the other side of the house in the garden with my sisters, and they were picking tomatoes. They were going to can tomatoes. And he says, I'll be down before she gets here. And he took 2 steps and fell 45 feet down the windmill. He landed 6 inches from a rock that was on the side of the windmill. If he hit that rock, he'd have been dead. But his eyes popped out of his eye sockets, and they were hanging on his cheeks, his eyes, and the ears were, every time the heart beat, they were spurting blood out of his ears. And my mother and sisters carried him in and put him on the kitchen table. And she tried to stop the flow of blood from his ears. And my next oldest brother, 10 years older than me, Leo, ran up to my uncle's place about a quarter of a mile away. He had a telephone, and we called Allendale, Dr. Erdl. He was the one that delivered me when I was born. And he came out, and the first thing he did was take those eyeballs and shoved them back into the sockets. And then he put cotton in each ear. And then he checked his arm, and his right arm was broke. And he set that and put a piece of cardboard on it. And it's then he checked his head. His skull was cracked all the way around, so he moved the skull. It moved just like that there. He could move inside. The skull was cracked around. And he he thought this boy is dead. Didn't take him to a hospital or anything. He just told my mother, he's going to have fevers. You got to pack his head in ice. And we had no electricity, no running water or anything. So my brother Evan was 12 years older than me. Would go up to a neighbor that had an ice house. They fill that ice house with ice that they cut from Beaver Lake, and they'd pack sawdust in sawdust. My mother kept ice on his head and ice. And about a month or so, he snapped out of it and said, "Where's Jake? I want to go out and play with Jake." He lived till he was 75 years old. He had a disease that ate up the muscles like that disease that baseball players get. But that's what killed him. That fall didn't kill him. It's an amazing thing.
It really is.
That story is in the book.
What was it like working on the farm?
On the farm?
Yeah, what was it like working on the farm?
It was work. It was work. We'd get up. When I was 6 years old, I had to milk cows. We milked 30 to 32 cows every morning and every night. We had no electricity, no running water. If it was winter time, we had to carry a kerosene lantern in. And as we milked the cows, we'd take the ladder and hook on a different nail above so we could see what was there. We didn't think it was anything special that we had to do that. Our neighbors and everything, we all lived the same way. We had no electricity, neither did they. So
Wow.
living like that. Yeah.
Wow.
But when I was 12 and in the 8th grade and graduated the 8th grade, my teacher said, "I'm going to send a little note here. You give it to your dad and your mother." And of course, I had to stop and read that note on the way home. And it says, "Mr. and Mrs. Larson, I hope you give Jake a chance to go to high school. He's a fast learner." And so I put the note back in my pocket and I gave it to my mother. And then she gave it to my dad, and my dad says, "There'll be no high school for Jake. I got him to do his chores." And that's the end of it. Well, my brother Earl, who was 14 years older than me, was the horseman. He took care of horses. He was like these people that can talk to horses. He would take these broncos and tame them. So they you could put harness on them and be able to working horse. And then he was kind of like a blacksmith. He would shoe them, and it's kind of hard. You know what horseshoes are? And
Yes, I do. I've seen pictures of them.
You nail those onto their hoofs so they wouldn't. You could use those horses in the field, and they wouldn't get cracks or anything in your field. So when high school, when fall came along, they sent out 2 weeks before high school started. They sent out a notice that it was time to sign up for high school. Well, Earl talked to my mother and dad and said, if you let Jake go to high school, I'll do his chores for him. And they said they would do it. I'm here today because my brother gave me a chance to go to high school. I took 1 year of typing, and I think that was in my sophomore year.
Wow.
I was the only boy in a class of 30 taking typing.
Mm.
And I was in the infantry. Infantry. It's the lowest thing in the service you can get. There's nothing lower than being in the infantry. You're there to sacrifice your body. And I ended up, by being in the infantry and having this typing ability, I ended up in Corps headquarters. Corps has 2 divisions under it. I was in an infantry regiment. And there's 4 of those in a division. Here I'm up. When we went over after the Japanese hit Pearl Harbor and everything, and we went overseas, I got transferred up into G3 of 5th Corps. G3 is plans and training. I became an operations sergeant. I got in on the planning of D-Day, of the invasion. I got the Bronze Star for that. I got the Bronze Star. I came from an infantry thing. Every time they had special training, I was the one they picked out of G3 to go and get that, because I knew about infantry, what you had to go through. It's that book describes all this stuff and puts it all in detail. If you read that book, you can use any part of it for your talking. Think of it. I've got 11 teachers in the United States that are using my book as their history book. My book, a country boy's book. Think of that.
Yes, it's really amazing. I saw when you signed the book.
Well,
And going back to your life, it said you survived the Great Depression. How was your life affected during that time?
during the Depression,
Yes.
we didn't think it was any different than anybody else. Everybody was poor. When my mother didn't buy canned goods unless it was absolutely necessary. We had a garden and she canned everything. And we butchered meat like butchering a steer. And she would cut it up and cook it up and make a gravy on it and put it in half-gallon mason jars and can it. And one of those half-gallon jars would feed our family of 8. See, along with you put potatoes, mashed potatoes and stuff along with it, and bread. Yes.
Wow. So mm. Now going back to your family, what were your parents like?
Was it what were my parents like?
Yes.
My dad didn't know how to raise children. He never told any of us that he loved them. I grew up with a dad that wouldn't pick you up on your and put on his knees or pat you on the back, good boy. No, we were there for one purpose: to do work. That's what we were made for, to do work.
Wow. What was your mother like?
My mother was such a sweetheart. Yeah, now you get TikTok? Do you get
I don't have
TikTok?
TikTok yet.
Yeah, you could get it on YouTube too.
Okay.
And in order to get on there, story time with Papa Jake, all in lowercase and crammed together.
Okay. What were your siblings like?
Siblings?
Mm-hmm.
There was 8 of us, no 2 of them alike. I had an older brother, 16 years older than me. I hardly knew him. When he became 18, he left home to go out on his own. I turned 2 years old when he left home. When he came home again, I was 8 years old. I didn't know him. I didn't know him.
Wow.
And then it's Earl, who was 14 years older than me. She seemed to take a like to me, and he was a mechanic besides horseman, and wasn't any engine or anything that he couldn't fix. He could get it running no matter what was wrong. So I inherited some of that ability.
That's amazing. Did any of your family members serve in the military?
No, we have nobody in the military anymore. All my family is dead. My first, I only have one first cousin left in the world, and that's a woman that married a Larson in South Dakota, and she was married into the Larson family.
I see.
I am the only Larson still with the Larson blood. What's that?
Besides your kids and grandkids.
My! I'm talking about that I grew up with.
I see.
What I've got now, I've got 9 grandchildren. I've got 11 great grandchildren. I've got a grandson that's a grandfather. Just crazy.
It's amazing.
Here I said, talking to you. I'm 100 years old. In 5 months, I'm going to be 101. I don't have an ache or a pain in my body. Think of it. How is that possible? And Monday, we're flying to Minnesota, to the county fair in Owatonna, Minnesota.
Awesome.
They are dedicating the fair in my honor. They have it in my honor.
Congratulations.
It's crazy. There are people flying in from New Jersey
Oops.
to meet me.
I
South
wish I could join.
Dakota. It's just plain crazy.
I wish I could meet you in person.
Yeah, I just like I look, a little old man that's been through a lot of. Think of it. I landed on Omaha Beach on D-Day in water right up to my chin. Let us out too doggone soon. They were trying to kill you, you know, when you got they were shooting everything over, and I wasn't too much afraid of the stuff being shot at us above, but we walked in that water. The Germans had that whole water, we were walking over mines, landmines, 1 million of them, 1 million mines they had planted on Omaha Beach. So we walk in line. So if the lead guy made it through, everybody stepped in the same tracks. Every once in a while, we were just one landing craft with 30 people on, and there were others walking just like us. And every once in a while, you look, man, there's a spurt of water comes out of that line. That means somebody stepped on a landmine.
Oh boy. Well, that's crazy. That's really crazy. Excuse me, is it okay if I could pause the interview for a minute? Wait, you're frozen. It froze.
That looks good. I can hear
Sorry, does it work
you.
now?
You're
it work now?
working just fine.
Okay,
Can you hear
sorry.
me?
Yes, I can. It froze for a minute. I'm sorry.
All right, no problem. All right, we're good.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So my next question is, how did you join the military at 15?
Well, like I say, at 15, I was staying in town. We're 14 miles away from town, and they didn't have good automobiles at that time, 1935, with 35 Chevy. And before the snows came, I drove that 14 miles in at 12 years old. 12 years old. I started driving when I was 11. Just on the farm, you know. But what's the difference? But you had the clutch and double clutch and shift, hand shift. That no automatic stuff like that. But you learn fast. When you need to, you just learn fast. And so my cousin, didn't have to work for his room and board. His dad who was my Uncle John, paid his way. But we'd meet every Saturday morning after I got done with my cleaning up. I worked for a widow that had 8 room and boarders. So I helped her. And so Saturday morning, we'd meet downtown and close to the Roxy Theater, and across the parkway, or the park, the armory was right there, and the National Guard. That's where they were stationed, at that armory. And we were walking by the Roxy Theater, and it said Saturday matinee, Gene Autry, America's favorite cowboy. Saturday matinee, 10 cents. Between us, we didn't have 1 cent or a penny. So Chick said, Jake, let's join the National Guard. They're advertising. They want to fill the unit. Said, Chick, we're 15 years old. You got to be 18 to get in there. He says, let's go over there and see. He says, we'll tell them. He says, you tell them when they ask you how old you are, you tell them 18, sir. I said, they'll never, they won't believe us. What are you talking about? He says, what can they do to us? Kick us out. So we walked over there. And there's a big captain sitting at his desk. And he had one of these triangle wood nameplates sticking out there. And I remember the names of that captain to this day, and I only saw it once in 1938. It said Hugh H. Soper, Soper, Captain Infantry. A couple of years ago, I was telling this to one of the guys that was asking me the same kind of question you did. Just got through. And he got out his iPhone and he's messing with the iPhone. He said, my God, look at that. There was a Captain Hugh H. Soper. I thought you were joking. It's just like I remembered. It's amazing that I can recall the names and places where we've been. It's a gift. And I've had medical problems. I had a fantastic stroke where I couldn't move anything in my body. My brain is working like it is right now. I couldn't reach over, have a phone right there. I was paralyzed. And the alarm, the radio is coming on. That means it's time for me to get out of bed. And your body starts talking to you. Your bladder says, you better make it to the bathroom pretty soon or you're going to be sorry. And the next thing I knew, my oldest son, who lives above me, opened the bedroom door and says, Dad, you got a problem? I didn't get up and shut off the radio. I usually got up and shut off the radio. It was like an alarm to him. I said, Kurt, I can't move. I can't move. I got to go to the bathroom. So he says, okay, I'll get Carlin. He lives right along. I got my two sons living with me to save my life. It's crazy. It's crazy. And then when I was 83, I'd been back in Minnesota for 7 weeks and made a trip up to Eau Claire, Wisconsin for the last Fifth Corps reunion. And here, my goodness, those guys could hardly move around there. They were getting old. And came home from that, and I'm sitting there reading the mail, stacks of mail, and Kurt comes down from upstairs and looks in my refrigerator. Nothing in there. I told him to use everything because I'm going to be gone for 7 weeks, and I'll just replenish it when I got home. So he was about ready to go back upstairs, and I said, Kurt, wait a minute. He says, you got a problem? I says, yeah. I'm getting dizzy. He says, I'll be right down. He goes up and gets his keys for his car and takes me down to Kaiser Permanente in Walnut Creek. That's about 12, 15 miles from here. And the doctor starts going over me, and I'm starting to feel good again. And at 10:30, he told my daughter, my family is down there already. And he says, I want to hook him up and keep him overnight. And she told me that, and I says, well, what are they going to do? She says, I think they're going to put you on a treadmill in the morning. Well, in the middle of the night, something must have happened, because the next morning I woke up in a hospital in Concord, 25 miles away. And I woke up, and I already had 6 stents in me. I had cardiac arrest. I was dead, and they brought me back to life. And the doctor came in and says, how you feeling? I says, I feel great. He says, no, I got to send you over to San Francisco, to Kaiser over there. You got to have 5 more stents. I've got 11 stents in me. 11. It's no mistake. I've been called a liar by some doctors. They didn't think anybody could have 11 stents. I've got 11. It's changed my life. It's changed my life. I'm like a Superman now. I've got good circulation all over. That's probably the reason I'm still here talking to you right now.
Wow. Um, so going back to your service, what was the training like for you?
Training?
Yes.
Hey, training is they push you to the limit. that's the object of they want to see who drops out. They push it. 25-mile force marchers. Yeah, with full pack. I never dropped out. Never dropped out. They have an ambulance waiting for those that couldn't make it and dropped out. It's just their body wasn't fit to go that kind of a distance.
Okay, what did military discipline look like?
Military
Military discipline.
discipline.
Yeah, what was it like?
Yes.
If you did your job, if a sergeant or somebody above you asked you to do a job, you just automatically did it. You didn't argue. You just it had to be done. And when I got to be a sergeant, I was a staff sergeant, and I've had people say, "Did you have to pull rank on anybody?" I said, "No, I never believed in that, because if you ask somebody to do something and they said they don't know how to do it, then you show them. You show them what to do, how to do it, and you have no problem."
Mm. Did you make any friends during the training?
Did I make any friends? Oh, God, yes. They're all dead.
Sorry to hear that.
Well, when you get to be the last one alive, think of that. Of all the people that landed on Omaha Beach, I am the only one alive. And I was in command of Omaha Beach every night from 7:30 at night to 7:30 in the morning. It was under my command. And I'm the only one still alive. Crazy, huh?
It is. When you completed the training, what was your rank at first?
At first,
Yes.
when you went into the service, you're a private. Then you became a private first class. And I got to be a corporal when I got to be company clerk of headquarters company. And when I had to get a table of organization from the colonel, I read through it and found out that I was supposed to be a sergeant with a corporal helper. I was a corporal with no help. So when I brought that up to Captain Erickson, the commanding officer, he said, "Well, I gave you that rating to one of my friends, and I just can't take it away from him. So I'll get you a helper." So, rubbing salt into a wound, he got me a corporal helper that couldn't type. What do I do with somebody like that? He sits around in a chair, and I do the work.
Wow.
So Captain Erickson made a few strikes, and then the Japanese hit Pearl Harbor. And
Right.
the colonel commanding our unit, the 135th Infantry Regiment, said to all the clerks up there, he says, you go back and tell your commanding officer that I'm granting everybody 15-day furloughs back to Minnesota. We were stationed in Louisiana at that time, 1,000 miles from home in the middle of winter.
Wow.
And he says, you tell the commanding officer that I'm granting 15-day furloughs back to Minnesota for all those who haven't had a furlough in the past year. So when I told Captain Erickson that, he says, Corporal, you go back and check the records, and instead of just saying Corporal, you take care of that. So he stipulates, you go back and check those records and see who hasn't had a furlough in the past year, and you give them 7 days furlough instead of 15. 7 days, I says, sir. It's going to take them 3 days to drive back there, and this is the middle of winter. No, we had no freeways at that time. You drove to one town to the other.
Which unit were you placed in?
What? I didn't
Which
get that.
unit were you placed in?
Which unit
Yes.
was I placed in? I was in 3 different units. I started off in infantry company. I got transferred to headquarters company as the company clerk. Then when we went over to North Ireland, I became for 30 days. I was in a unit. 3 of us ran a unit where we're transferred Americans that had joined the Canadian forces and the British forces before we got in, and we transferred them back into service with the United States Army. And my job there was to sell them GI insurance. I was just a private at that time. Private, yes. Captain Erickson, when I made that furlough out, I told you about the furlough, 15 days. Seemed like my typewriter, instead of putting 7 days down there, my typewriter made a mistake and put 15 days down there. And he signed the paper. So when I got back, I became a private instead of a corporal, and no longer a company clerk. And it was the best thing that could happen to me, because when I got to North Ireland, I got transferred into 5th Corps, into G3, and I became an operations. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had all these chances.
When were you deployed to Northern Ireland?
What?
Where were you deployed in Northern Ireland?
Or when?
Or when?
When? I think that was in March, because 2 years ago, with my TikTok, I mentioned Lurgan and the castle. I couldn't remember the name of the castle that we were staying in. It had 365 rooms, one for every day of the year, and over 50 chimneys. And
Wow.
man, TikTok picked up on that, and I got mail from North Ireland. They said, that's Brownlow House. And they got me to come back there 2 years ago. And they named a day for me. March 18th is Jake Larson Day in North Ireland. Jake
Wow.
Larson. It's crazy. It's crazy. You can look that up.
I will.
And my book, a young
Okay.
man read my book, and he wrote a song about the book.
Oh,
Jake
wow.
Larson, the luckiest man in the world. And you could get that on YouTube.
Yeah, I actually listened to the song.
You just listen to it, see what I mean?
Yeah, I listened to it.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I really like the song. It's amazing. Okay, what did you do when you were in Northern Ireland?
Uh, uh, I joined G3 as just a typer, as a typist. And the colonel liked my work, so he put me in charge of the tables of organization. I sat right outside his doorway. That was my office. The, the, the tables of organization reach about 6 foot long, and it was quite a job.
You can
And
imagine.
because we were operating under World War I tables of organization, and this is World War II. Everything is different. Even the headgear, instead of wearing British helmets, we got the round helmets. Instead of wrap around leggings, we got the snap-on kind canvas leggings. And our rifle, instead of a bolt action, we had automatic rifles. It's a complete change. So all those tables of organization had to be changed. That was my job to do that. So I wasn't even in there for 3 months, and I was a sergeant already. From a private entering, and in 3 months I got to be a sergeant. And then I went in with the planning of the invasion with Colonel Hill. Colonel Hill, G3. That's plans and training. So I got into the exact thing that promoted me right up.
So did you do anything before you and your unit went out to wire? That means going out in enemy territory / before going to fight the enemy.
Come on, I need help.
What was that?
So I was asking if he and his unit did anything before they went out to wire, meaning going out in enemy territory / before going to fight the enemy, like saying a prayer, for example.
Did you say a prayer, or did you do any preparations before you went to storm Normandy?
No. We were planning this for so long, and we're over there 2.5 years when the invasion came over. And we were so sick of waiting and being over there and not getting anything done. We wanted to get it over with and get in there and go. And the reason I'm here talking to you now is because everything was planned. We, every person that landed on Omaha Beach, every person that landed on Omaha Beach came through these fingers. You're looking at them now. I typed their names. Think of that. It's crazy. It's crazy. And there was a you you were, it had to be special. You had to be notified where you were going, what beach you were going on, what part of the beach. I came in on Easy Red. That was the killingest part of the beach. There, it's, I think there was 95 or so killed right there on Easy Red. I didn't get a scratch. Somebody up there loves me. I swear. It's crazy.
Describe D-Day in your perspective.
Describe D-Day?
Yes, when you stormed the beaches.
Oh, God. It's we didn't storm them. We walked into that deep water and worried about stepping on a mine. And when we did get out of the water, so I was only up to my knees. I came in with part of the first infantry division, and that was the 60th infantry regiment that I came in with, and it's so I broke off from them and got to the beach. I had two MG-42 machine guns up on top of the cliffs, and they were shooting at me from completely different angles. So they had me lined up, and I found a little stone, kind of sandstone, 8 inches in height, that I got behind them, and they couldn't shoot over that thing and hit me. And I was there. I smoked cigarettes at that time. I had this waterproof cigarette carrier. I got a cigarette out, and they're shooting at me, spurting up sand in front of me, and I put a cigarette in my mouth. My God, my matches were all wet. And I sensed a person to my left, and I hollered, "Hey, buddy, have you got a match?" And I heard no answer. So I turned. There was a body laying there with a helmet with no head. And just at that time, I left. It's like that soldier's soul was telling me, get up and run right now. And it's like a miracle. I stood up, and those machine guns, both of them, shut off. Maybe to reload, maybe to change barrels, whatever. It gave me a chance to get up and run. And probably 30 seconds. And then the machine gun started to catch up with me. They started shooting again. I was 5'10" tall. I weighed 120 pounds. And I was thinking, my God, I'm glad the Germans don't know how to shoot at toothpicks. And I made it to the cliff without a scratch.
Wow. This wow. Mm. Mm. So I was told that you also fought in the Battle of the Bulge. Is that correct?
Yes.
Can you describe what you saw for me?
Oh, yes. See, I was in command of the night shift. I was a staff sergeant. So it was the night of December 15th. I goes to work. Marlene Dietrich was going to perform for the troops that night. I had to work. So while people were enjoying Marlene Dietrich, I was in command of all the divisions thing that we had online. We had 2 divisions online. The first Infantry Division and the 29th Infantry Division. And we had to keep in contact with them. That's through these teletypewriters. They're hooked together. You type into it, and it goes. It transfers it by wire. They had lines running to them to the divisions.
I see.
Geez.
Did you have any friends that were lost in the war?
No, really. My friends and we were all pretty lucky. I lost one of my high school buddies.
I'm very sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Carlos Bokey.
What was his name?
What was that?
What was the name?
What was your friend's name?
Carlos Bokey.
Oh, okay. I
And
see.
that's when I was a company clerk, and he was a truck driver, and we'd meet on Sundays, and he says, Jake, he says, let's join the Air Corps. I says, what's the benefit of that? We're in the service. He says, well, he says, after you go through the training, you become a lieutenant. You become an officer. More money, he says. Hey, that sounds interesting. So I said, yeah, let's go. So passed every test except my eyes. I was born colorblind.
Really?
You don't even know it. You don't know you're colorblind. And
Are you okay?
I was drying up.
Okay.
So you were colorblind.
Yeah. No, I was colorblind. So I couldn't go. Carlos was sent to Florida. The Japanese hit Pearl Harbor while Carlos was in Florida, and he went on that. I went overseas to North Ireland, and we were to help the British. And in November, we moved over to England, to Bristol, England, and we took over Clifton College there, and I corresponded with Carlos back in United States, and man, I got a letter from my mother that said Carlos Boki was killed in an plane accident. Couldn't hardly believe it. She said,
Wow. Wow.
on his graduation, they had a flyby, and on the flyby, the two planes collided, and they burnt up in a ball of flame. They didn't even know whose body was which when they sent them back to Minnesota. It's the irony of that was told by my mother. 2 weeks after that, I got a letter from Carlos Boki. A different ship brought it over late. And he says, tomorrow we go up for the flyby. It was like reading a letter from a ghost. And he says, we're going to the 8th Air Corps, and I'll look you up, Jake, when we get over there. It's one of the worst letters. I just so unbelievable. All the stuff that I went through. Nothing has affected me so much as that letter from him.
It's hard to imagine losing your friend.
What was that?
I said it's hard to imagine losing a friend.
Losing a friend. Oh,
No,
yes.
she just said she couldn't imagine losing a friend.
Oh, yeah. It's he had a quip for everything. He had a fast mind, and it brought me back to when we were going to high school in 1939, and his dad had got a new Studebaker President. That's a high-priced one, and he says, you want to go with me to Austin? That was 35 miles away, and at that time, 35 miles was a long way. And here I'm working for my room and board, and no money. And I said, what's in Austin? He says, my girlfriend's down there. Happy about him. Happy about him. So on the way, I said, look, does Happy Bottom have a name? He says, yeah, her name is Gladys. Gladys. Happy Bottom. You see the correlation?
I did.
Well, that's the kind of a mind he had. He was so sharp. So we went to the Canton Cafe. how do I remember these names? See, like that. It's forever. Went to Canton. Here she's in a booth with another boy. And she says, Carlos, aren't you going to fight for me? And I can remember what his answer was. He says, fighting over a girl is like fighting for green cheese.
That's really funny. Okay. When you weren't fighting or near the enemy slash there was a possible lull in the war, what did you do?
There were no lulls in the war. We had no lulls. When you're chasing the Germans from one spot to the next, it was like we were. I just could not get enough sleep because I worked all night, and then during the day we had to move to keep up with everything else, and then I still had to work all night. It seemed like I was perpetually needing more sleep. In fact, right after D-Day, a week after D-Day, a terrific storm came in.
Really?
And it just tore the place and rained and poured, and it just, and I was sleeping in a ditch. Somebody picked me up out of there. I was passed out, pneumonia, and I ended up in a field hospital.
You had pneumonia?
I had pneumonia. And here's something for the books. I was one of the first people that they used penicillin on.
What is that?
Penicillin. Penicillin is one of the biggest improvements. I had ear problems, and for getting rid of that ear problems, they used to give you sulfa, turn you yellow, and it took a long time to do it. Penicillin, you get a shot of penicillin, and overnight, man, you're feeling pretty damn good and got rid of the disease that's infecting you.
Were you injured at some point during the war?
Were you injured at some point during the war?
Never got injured, never got a scratch. Never got a scratch.
Wow.
There's somebody up there liked what I was doing, and it's that way to this day. Think of it.
Tell her the story about the Jeep when you had to go relocate. When you have to go
yeah. When we were in North Ireland, I got acquainted with the medical major there because I had ear trouble, and I had a Argus C2 camera, 35 millimeter, and he says, I got an 8 millimeter movie camera. You had to wind up the spring in that thing. He says, if you go on furlough any place, I want you to take it along and take some pictures. I'll send them to my wife. So I got a furlough to Edinburgh, Scotland.
Wow.
And so I gave him his camera back when I got back from there. And a couple months later, I'm walking around on Sunday taking the pictures of some swans. We don't have swans in Minnesota, so I thought there'd be something good to take a picture of. And he drove up in his Jeep, screeched, come to home. Hey, Jake, I got a bone to pick with you. What kind of a bone would a medical major have with a corporal? He says, those pictures you took with my camera. He says, my wife wants to know who those girls are. Man, let's back up. I says, what are you talking about? Man, that was months ago, see. He says, when you went to Edinburgh. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, I remember that. Yes, I says, there was a convention there of these girls. And you don't find that many girls that ever, in one place. So I took pictures of them. I ran, man. Well, my wife says, she wants to know who they are. I said, I don't know who they were. I said, they were just girls. But I says, you never saw beautiful girls together? You take pictures of them. I said, next time, don't send raw film back. You can always get that developed here, and we can cut out anything you don't want to send to your wife. So his Jeep was sitting there. So I handed him my camera, my still camera, the 35 millimeter one. And I sat in that Jeep. And that picture is on the rear of my book, sitting in that Jeep. Do you remember seeing that? You don't even remember seeing it.
I took a look at the back of the book and I saw a few pictures.
Did you see me sitting in that Jeep?
I think so.
Well, anyway, you're going to be looking. You just turn the book up, read the back page. That Jeep is right there, and I'm sitting in it. Now, here's a strange thing. I took that picture of me in the Jeep and a picture of the swans, and I sent them to my mother. And my dad looked at them, and he took them into the photo news in Owatonna, Minnesota. That's where we're going on Monday or Tuesday, Monday. We're flying there. Think of it. And here's the thing. A high school girl, a sophomore in high school, cut that picture out and put it in her wallet. And her girlfriend says, who is that picture? She says, that's the guy I'm going to marry. She never saw me in person. And when I got out of the service and met her, it was like an attraction. I met her in June, and we were married in November.
Was it your wife, Miss Lola?
My wife was named Lola, yes. But I didn't know that picture, that she had that picture in her wallet until 1948. And she was pregnant with our first son. And I came home, I was at a service station. I came home and wash my hands. And there she had her wallet. All the stuff from her wallet was out. She was getting a new wallet, see?
Mm-hmm.
And there was that picture of me in the Jeep. I picked it up. I said, where did you get that picture? Oh, I cut it out when I was going to high school. It was in the photo news. You put this in your wallet and you don't even know me? She says, that's what my girlfriend said. She says, who is that? She says, that's the guy I'm going to marry. That's what I told my girlfriend. I said, you told your girlfriend you were going to marry me and you didn't even know me? She, that's the truth. See how miracles happen to me?
Yeah.
You can't make that up. You can't make it up.
Okay, so going back to when you served, was there a concentration camp that you liberated?
What? Come on.
Was there a concentration camp that you liberated?
Help me. Kim. We're going to have to wait.
Okay.
I'm having trouble.
Okay. Do you want me to repeat the question slowly?
Yes.
Was there a concentration camp that you liberated?
No, I never got into Germany. I never got into. I got 8 miles from it in Belgium, and after the Battle of the Bulge was just about over, and my full bird colonel said, I'm giving you a 45-day leave to go home. Been overseas for 3 years. And he says, you go home and then you can come back.
Were you
So,
ever on leave to, oh, sorry.
it took me 51 days to get home. Then I had 45 days at home. And after 45 days, I went up to Fort Snelling to report to go back overseas. And he said, 10 minutes ago, I got a thing from the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., and they said, I could send you back to your unit in Germany, or I could give you a discharge. Which would you prefer, Sergeant? Man, I'm overseas for 3 years. I'm going home. I'm going to stay home. I don't want to go back to the war. So I says, I'd like to go home. So he says, is there anything in your records that you would like corrected? I said, yes, there's an error in my birth year. He says, tell me about it. I says, well, it says I'm born in 1919. And I says, I was actually born in 1922. He says, I'll take care of that, Sergeant. Now, years later, when I was having coffee, Earl Heath said, you ever get any medals? I said, I got the Bronze Star. Bronze Star, he says, I'd like to see that. I never saw one. We had just moved from Pleasant Hill here to here in Martinez. So I went back and I looked. I could not find that Bronze Star. So I came to Earl Heaps. I can't find it. And then my daughter says, "Don't worry, Dad. I'll just write to the Army, and they'll replace that for you." So the Army replies, "Jake Larson, we don't have any record of him. All my records were burned up in Kentucky in 1973. Man, and here I am overseas for 3 years fighting, landing on D-Day, got in on the planning of it, and got no proof of anything. I don't even have veterans. I never had help from the veterans because they could find no record of me. I finally got congressional shield that shows that I served. You can't make these things up. So I had to be someplace. And here shows pictures of me in G3. I'm a staff sergeant there. Life is crazy.
It really is. What's one thing from the war that you will never forget?
That landing on D-Day. That will go down with me. Yes. War is called war because it's hell. It kills people. And it seems like the best always get killed first.
Mm.
Thank God I don't read up there. So.
Okay, when the war ended, did you celebrate?
No, I didn't. I was out of the war. I was one of the first 12 discharged before the war was over. It's no, I didn't celebrate because too many people gave their lives for
That's true.
celebration. It's just I preach that now. We aren't heroes. We went over there fighting. We're not the heroes. The heroes are the ones that gave their life so that you could make it through. Those are the guys that I celebrate. But think of it. I'm right down here. To me, there's nobody else in the units that I was in. 3 different units, and I'm still the only one alive. Talk about lucky. And think of it. I wouldn't have had this chance to meet you.
Okay. When were you discharged?
When was I discharged?
Yes.
April 13th, 1945. One day after President Roosevelt died. He died on April 12th. I was discharged on April 13th.
Let's see. Among the Bronze Star, were there any other medals or awards that you received?
Yes, in 2014, I got a letter from the French consul in San Francisco. They said I was awarded the Legion of Honor. That's the highest rating medal that the French give them.
What was your life like after World War II ended?
What was my life like?
Yes, after the war ended.
I helped my dad on the farm, putting in some cement for hog feeders. The stuff was so neglected during the wars. Everything was rated. You can't do this, you can't do that, and so we had some catching up to do. And then I enrolled in Dunwoody Institute. It's a trade thing. I learned electricity, air conditioning, radio, TV, and then I married that little girl that carried my picture, and she's the reason I'm sitting here talking to you right now. We bought this place in 1990. I was at the flea market, and my son Colin drove up with my wife, and he found me in the flea market, and he said, "Mom wants to talk to you now." So went down to the car, and she looked up at me from the car, and the first word out of her mouth, I knew I was screwed and tattooed. Whatever she said she was going to get. She looked up and she says, "Father, I found my dream house." Father, that father was the magic word. And this is the house we got right now. I'm sitting in this house. Because of her, I'm still alive.
Were there any ceremonies that you went to honoring you and the other World War II veterans?
I don't think so. I can't remember anybody honoring me as the last one. But they're going to get that chance when I go to the fair, because I'm going to tell them I'm the last one. And that unit that I joined, Company F, 135th Infantry Regiment, is stationed right now in Owatonna. Yes, but it's all new people.
Going back to your wife, Miss Lola, can you tell me about her?
Can I tell you about her?
Yes.
She had wrapped me around her fingers. What? There's a song out. Whatever Lola wants, Lola gets. I think the song was written about her. She couldn't boil water. She didn't know how to cook anything. I'm a halfway decent in the kitchen. So I trained her a little bit, see. And she became great. She became a baker besides a cook. She could make a jelly roll, man. It was just fantastic. Pies, cakes, cookies. It's if you can't afford to buy this stuff, you have to learn how to do it. And we were always short on money. The wage when I got out of the service, the wage for anybody there was about 25 cents an hour. You don't make much of a living 25 cents an hour. After graduating from Dunwoody, 2 years of that, I was Montgomery Ward's fixing up everything. And $45 a week. We lived on that.
Wow. Okay, have you ever met a former enemy soldier?
No,
You haven't?
no. I looked at them lined up there after the Falaise Gap, and they were lined up to go to camps, prison camps, but I never came in contact with any.
Okay. Would you go back to where you fought?
Yeah, I've been back 3 times to four times to Omaha. No, 3 times. 3 times
in the last 3 years.
in the last 4 years. I've been to Europe 5 times. 5 times. Think of that.
But not before.
But not before that. No, just a little since 2075. No, 1975 wasn't it? Yeah, 1975.
When did you start going back to Normandy?
What was that?
5 years ago. 4 years ago. No, 3 years ago, huh? It was after.
Well, I went 75, 75th anniversary.
The 75th anniversary. And then so 5 years ago was the first time.
Yeah, 5 years ago.
Okay,
yeah, because this June is going to be the 80th anniversary of D-Day, and that's the last one they're going to have.
Really?
Because think of it, if I'm the only one alive,
and you're infantry,
it's just yeah, running out of old men
and women.
Oh.
And women. Oh yes, yeah. When I was over there, one of the women is 102. She was a nurse.
Yeah.
Oh, over there. Hey, it's amazing.
So I understand you went back to Normandy for the 79th anniversary of D-Day. Can you tell me about that?
Well, it was just about like the 78th anniversary of D-Day. The chief of staff, General Milan, or I get he gave a little speech about landing on D-Day. He wasn't. He probably wasn't even in the service by that time when we did that. And he just got relieved from his job, got a new one going in there. But no, it's, all you can think about is my God, look at all these graves.
Wow. Um,
Yeah, about 10,000 of the guys that landed on Normandy Beach are forever buried there.
mhm.
And it's hard for me to think. You made it through. How is it possible that you could be through all that stuff and come out without a scratch? Yeah,
Um, what were
it,
when you went back to Normandy, what were the highlights of your trip?
oh, the highlights of my trip. Now I got a little French family there, couple
You
little
do?
girls and a boy, and they just love me. We communicate with each other, and I met this French woman. She works for Delta Airlines. She's the coordinator between the French and the English. She speaks both languages good.
That's awesome. What was her name?
Virginia.
Oh, that's so cool.
Virginia. And she's she takes packages along with her when she goes to France and delivers them in person to these children. And this is uh, National Broadcasting Company
Hmm.
got word of this through TikTok, and that I communicated with these. So on the 79th anniversary of D-Day,
Hmm.
going over there, Delta furnished the airplane. Delta furnished all the people to run the plane and everything.
Wow.
And the pilot for that
Hmm.
had a co-pilot, and this co-pilot was the person that pushed me around in the wheelchair. It's crazy.
It really is. Um, mm. Would you go back to Normandy again?
Oh, I suppose I will. If I'm still alive. These days, I just look forward just about a few weeks ahead. You never know what's going to happen.
Right. So that was my last question. So I was just t saying that was my last question.
Oh, that was, man, it's think of the thousands of people that were killed, and think of how their families had to respond to that.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of what's happening right now in Hawaii. It's all those people. It's like a war. It's like a war. No regard for human life.
Hmm.
It's a massive fire.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really terrible. Last I heard, I think I remember hearing 57 people were confirmed dead.
And they moved that up to 80 and said there's going to be more.
Oh, that I didn't hear.
Yeah.
Uh, it's really crazy when you think about it.
Well, life is crazy.
Mhm.
Wh-
It's unpredictable.
what is the purpose of all of us if there isn't a life afterwards? If something isn't alive up there guiding us, I am living proof that there is somebody guiding me from above, and they like what I'm doing. I'm bringing attention to all those soldiers that gave their life so that we who made it through could make it and bring life back again. But I don't like being called a hero, and I get a lot of letters and stuff with hero in there. And I changed that word. I actually changed hero. I took the O off of hero, HERO, took it
Mm-hmm.
off and put TO instead there. So, you know what that says?
Mm-mm. Oh,
Here too.
oh,
A here too. What's a here too?
oh, I see. I get it. Um,
I'm here to tell you I'm not a hero. The heroes are all up there. I'm here
they
to
are.
tell you.
They really are.
Yeah, that was invented by me. And that's used now, but in, when they talk about me.
Yep. Um, So, Papa Jake, I would think again, thank you for your service during World War II.
Shelby, it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure. I hope you get all the merits you need there for your scouts.
Thank you. Um, okay. Thank you,
Have a
Papa
good
Jake.
day. Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Have a good